Welcome everyone to Formula Access. Today I got a very special guest. This is a young man that I met in Florida earlier this year at the St. Pete Grand Prix, and we got a great show for you. Jordan, good to have you, man. It's been 6 months since I last saw you, and for all that don't know, I got the pleasure of having dinner with Jordan and a bunch of friends during the St. Pete Grand Prix. And I was so impressed by his wisdom behind the business of motorsports. That's a very rare trait that I've noticed in young drivers. And I was blown away by his business acumen for why the business end of motorsports matters so much. And so I'll leave that out to you, Jordan Missig, IndyPro driver. And Jordan, welcome.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate the kind words you had to say there, for sure. You know, that was obviously such a good dinner that we had there down in St. Pete in Florida. But absolutely, I feel honored, blessed, and thankful that you thought of me and are allowing me to come on the show with you. We're going to talk a bunch of racing, talk about me, and yeah, we're going to have fun with this. So I'm pleasure and glad to be on the show with you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So for many of my viewers, it's primarily the US, but it is global. So,
Sure.
You know, my viewers are all over the world. So, you know, tell them who you are and where you are today. What are you doing right now?
Yeah, sure. So Jordan Missig, 24 years of age as of right now, currently racing in two series, the IndyPro 2000 championship, which is the second rung of the Road to Indy ladder system, 2 levels before the NTT IndyCar series. And I'm doing that all with Pabst Racing, a team that's based out of Onawaka, Wisconsin. And then on the other side of the spectrum, I'm actually doing sports car racing with Wayne Taylor Racing on the Super Trofeo side. Now that's a Lamborghini Huracan Evo 2, that 625 horsepower GT car. And that thing is a monster to drive. It is awesome. Fantastic power of a car to drive. Definitely a really good entry-level sports car series to get into, even though a lot of people will say that seems like a lot of car to be an entry-level sports car level to get into. But honestly, it teaches you more from a sports car side because it's one of the more harder sports cars to drive, probably even more harder than the regular GT3s or GTD cars that you would see on the WeatherTech paddock today. So, you know, I race with them, and they're all based out of Brownsburg, Indiana. So 2 really good teams that I say I couldn't be more happy and to be a part of and help them elevate my racing career.
So, okay. So we know about the road to Indy. We know,
Yep.
You know, I believe it starts with USF 2000 out of karting.
Yep.
You know, and then it's IndyPro, Indy Light, IndyCar.
Yep. That's the ladder system.
Okay. So for you, you're in the second tier of that. What is the difference between a USF 2000 car and an IndyPro, and then the next rung up?
Yeah, so the difference between the USF 2000 and IndyPro 2000 really isn't too much. It's the same chassis. So everyone who goes from USF up to IndyPro is basically feel like they're driving the same car. But really, it's bigger tires, bigger motor. You're dealing with downforce and a higher top speed. That's pretty much it, the difference between the IndyPro and USF. But not only that, you get to go to a different track. So the only other track that the IndyPro series goes to that USF 2000 doesn't is we go race the 1.5-mile oval at Gateway. And that in alone itself is a big, massive oval jump compared to what the USF guys will race at Lucas Oil Raceway, which is a very little small kidney bean. So that's the biggest jump between USF to IndyPro. However, in Indy Lights, you're also dealing with bigger tire, different chassis, because now instead of a Caddis chassis, which is made in Italy, you're dealing with a Dallara factory chassis, which is made in Indianapolis, right outside of Speedway, Indiana. So you're dealing with the Dallara chassis. It's got a little bit of a turbo kick as well. And to be able to drive that car, you're literally being on the edge of the tire. Like every video I've seen of Indy Lights drivers who are driving that car that are fast are literally swatting flies loose as a goose on the steering wheel. And you're basically getting a workout in of itself just to drive that car fast.
I love it. So I got to go walk the support series down in St. Pete and go look at the supercars, and it's like a Millionaire's Fast and the Furious. It's not,
Oh yeah,
you know, like a Honda Civic all souped out. It's like a Lamborghini souped out. It is a phenomenal. I mean, if you like cars, that I was more enamored by that part of the track than I was, you know, walking the IndyCar paddock. It was crazy.
yeah, yeah. I mean, those cars right there are eye candy to all of us. You know, they just attract your attention. They bring up various questions because you're curious about them and you want to know a little bit more. And especially with the Indy Lights cars, they are the closest thing you can get to an Indy car, you know, besides being in the Indy car themselves. And the way they sound too during the downshifts and in the braking zone, you could tell a difference that, like, I was at Portland just this past weekend for the final race of the Road to Indy series. And every time you hear the Indy Lights cars go into a braking zone, you could just tell it sounds like a big car. And you just want to get involved with it and get in it because you know that's the next step, not to IndyCar, but it's a just much bigger car. And you're also getting your entry level into the IndyCar series because now it's not under the Dan Anderson promotions. It's actually under the IndyCar ranking system.
So how did you get into this? Like, how did you end up here? I mean, you're a couple of steps away from the pinnacle of American open wheel. How did you get here?
Now, I will say this. If you asked me this question 4 years ago or 3 years ago even, and I'll say 4, I would have had no aspirations or have any chance in my mind thinking I would be on the road to being an IndyCar driver or a professional race car driver, let alone. You know, it started with me us becoming members at a place called the Audubon Country Club. And it's a country club here in Joliet, Illinois, that is basically made for, it's like a golf course, but with cars. So you could bring any car out you want and just drive on a racetrack for any day, like 6 days a week, 6 days out of the 7 days a week. You could drive it for maybe, let's say, an hour and a half max. Minimum, I should say. Minimum. Max, you could probably go all day if there's nobody here. So, you know, it just started off as a racetrack to where people who are car enthusiasts who just wanted to bring their cars out and just let them run free, you know, drive as fast as you can, not get caught by the cops. So it was just a way for people to just kind of come out and have fun. Then later on, it turned into everyone buying race cars and start coming driving race cars because they're purposely built and they're not having to worry about potentially ruining their everyday drive car, their daily driver, or the car they brought to the racetrack. You know, they don't have to also worry about the insurance companies as well, worrying about that as well. So once that happened, you know, everyone just started to, the club started to produce a race series. And with that, you started to get guys like in the Spec Miata series. You're seeing guys in like a GT type car, lower GT type cars that you would go race over in SCCA. And then what got kind of grinded my teeth a little bit in was a Radical sports car and Pro Mazdas that you have out here at the club, which are very light sports cars and open wheel Pro Mazdas for like entry level drivers going into SCCA racing. But the one thing that the club didn't offer that they started offering once we joined members back in 2015, first started in 2016 racing, was go-karts. And they brought in the new Margay LO206 go-karts and started to become a Margay dealer here in at the Audubon. And the first year in 2016 is when they started the race series. And I kid you not, we probably had maybe 5 or 6 guys every race in that series. We started off with 5 or 6 guys. That was it. And from there, we probably now in a short span of 5 years have maybe 20 guys every race, almost 15 to 20 guys in senior who are racing.
Wow. So you started coming to the track because of family, because of you, karting?
So we knew about the track when they first broke ground, which was back in 2003, 2004. Mark Basso, who owns the track, would go to all these Rotary meetings that my dad and his dad, my grandfather, would attend to, and he would present the idea of the track. And my grandfather, my dad, they loved it, absolutely loved it. But my dad, who owned a car body shop business at the time, who he was part of the owners along with two of his other business partners, was married to the business. You know, he couldn't set money away. He couldn't set time away to go to the racetrack and have fun yet because he was working really hard. So from that point, we knew about the track, but just never went to it until he sold the business in 2015. Right after that is when we got a membership and came here.
And the obsession started?
The obsession, the addiction was in. Now, I will say this. I've always loved racing my entire life. My first race I ever went to was when I was probably 4 years old. I went to a NASCAR race up in Michigan. And the races, obviously NASCAR races become really long. And for a 4-year-old, you probably don't have the attention span that will last through a 4-hour NASCAR race. So about halfway through, I got tired, fell asleep in the stands, and then told my mom, I want to go back. I want to go back to the RV. So she took me back. And then that was the last race I potentially could have been to, because she said, if you're not going to stay for the entire length of the race, we're not taking you anymore. After that, I never went back, and I haven't missed a race since.
Mom does it, man. She knows how to encourage her kids.
You know, some say mom knows best, so she knew it for sure. She definitely knew what was best for me in that case.
So were you all in when you started? I mean, did you jump in a go-kart and say, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life? Or was it like fun, or what?
Well, at first, you know, I was always good at racing. I even go a little bit before that. I always go to like rental karts like K1, or even we go to like these go-kart tracks, and I'd always be the fastest. I'd always win, be quick. And I just, for some reason, knew like when I put like a helmet on or got on a go-kart, I was always going like to a race mode base. And from there, I was just a really good driver, would be able to kind of have good kart control, weave them through and in and out people, and was just quick. And after that, you know, we can touch on this a little bit more, but I would always sim race, play video games and all that stuff, would always want to race, and would race by myself, would race against people, and just be naturally quick. So then once I got into a go-kart here and we got into it, I started winning races, started being naturally quick, started, you know, understanding a little bit more. And no, I didn't have the aspirations of being a racer at first, because I didn't know if that was something I wanted to do until you started winning, until you started seeing I was really good, until we started going up against stiffer competition. I was still being successful and winning, and I absolutely loved it. Then I was like, this is what I want to do, because I absolutely love it and I don't want it to stop.
So how long did you kart before you said, okay, I think I saw in another podcast on your channel.
Yep.
You talked about racing and junior formula series. Like how did you get from a Margay kart into a formula series or an Indy series?
So it started in 2016, was racing karts, won the track championship here, 2016 and 2017. Then I started my transition in the cars, where I was testing a radical sports car with Team Stradale here at the Autobahn, but also would start going to different tracks. Still in karts at the time, went into the Margay Ignite Challenge Series, which travels to different tracks in the Midwest, and ended up winning the championship that year in 2018, which was my first year doing the whole series. And then the next year after that, jumped into went radical sports car racing. And then did that whole year, did that for 2019. That was my 2019 plan, was to go radical sports cars. After that, we finished second in the championship, but probably thought we were thinking about what I wanted to do for next year. If I come back in 2020 to do another year radical, probably going to win the championship, probably not going to learn much. But what was some other options? The next option was either to go maybe LMP3 racing, try to do that. That seemed like a big jump from a radical sports car to an LMP3 car. Or we think about doing some open wheel racing. And that's the next step I wanted to go into, was open wheel. So was looking for a different series to go into. And there was either, I thought I was much better to go into F4, it was already above that level, but it was either going to be a USF 2000 or go into a Formula Regional Americas car, which was F3, is still F3 at the time. And we felt like that was the better suit, because The Radical was about the exact same pace as the USF 2000, but I felt like the Formula Regional America Series in the F3 would have been a better suit of car. Plus, it's a part of SCCA, not part of the road to Indy. So it was a great way to grind my teeth and cut through my teeth without being underneath the IndyCar spotlight.
Okay, I have heard that the Formula chassis is a much better chassis. I don't even know if to say if it's more balanced or what, but I've heard from a couple of people that it is just it's an easier car to focus on racing.
Yes. Yeah, much easier to focus on with racing wise, and it's a good stepping stone, good program to learn your racecraft. As far as chassis though, it is a little bit heavier than the Tatis chassis that the USF 2000 and IndyPro 2000 use. So that's why when we look at the USF and IndyPros, they generally have a little bit more higher top speed, is because the chassis is a little bit lighter and the car is naturally aspirated and produces a little bit more power through corners rather than on the straightaways, which is what the F4 and the Formula Regional America car excels at.
So when you're making this decision, do I go to F3? Do I go to USF? Are you thinking where am I going to learn next year? Or are you thinking, how can I get into F2 and Formula One? Or how do I, bypass a part of the road to Indy and end up in the car? Like, is there an end objective for you?
There was, and you just said it right there at the end. How can I bypass and get to the next step? And that was because right when we were joining the Formula Regional America Series or looking into it, Honda just announced the scholarship to the champion, which was a ride in Indy Lights.
Okay.
And right there, as soon as they said that the Indy Lights scholarship was up for grab in Formula Regional, I said, we got to do that. We got to at least have a shot at it. I don't care what it is. We just got to at least give it an attempt. And unfortunately enough, this was also the year COVID happened in 2020. So at the time, Indy Lights decided, you know what, we're not going to have a season. So all the Indy Lights drivers thought they would be kinky about it to come down to Formula Regional Americas to earn themselves another Indy Lights scholarship. So that way they have a season to be paid for.
How competitive was that?
Very. And I absolutely loved it. I loved the fact that the Indy Lights guys came down, and it was in fact the first experience of pro racing, I should say, was to be against Indy Lights competitors. Because I think it made me 10 times better than what I think I could have been. It also gave me, things I know I need to work on, the pace I need to be up to, and their experience level versus mine showed me the way that I think I was able to excel at a much quicker rate than I would have if I did a year of USF 2000.
I want to pause the conversation here real quick.
Yep.
The fortitude of a 20-something to constantly challenge themselves. You said this in a handful of occasions as you're deciding, what do I do next year? What do I do next year? What am I preparing? It's not, I've not heard this is where I'm going to go win, or this is, the next rung of the ladder. It's where am I going to get challenged? And I think it's a trait that young people have lost today. Right. And it's this constant draw for the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
And I do think at the highest levels of motorsport today, we're seeing, I don't think we're going to see it much anymore in Formula One, but I do believe that we're seeing this in, some of it in Formula One, a little bit maybe in IndyCar is
right.
When you think of the path of least resistance, you remove the meritocracy of motorsports, which is the best win, the best
right.
the highest levels. And, it's not the bank account. And what happens when you're not challenging yourself, this is in business and merit and everything.
Everything.
You hit the top and it's like, my sponsors can't help me win a championship when I'm in IndyCar or Formula One, because checks don't win championships. It got you there, and it's a necessity of motorsports. But when you get to that level, if you don't have the Jordan Missig mindset going from a go-kart
Yeah.
to an Indy car of like, I'm constantly learning and growing and being better and pushing myself and my limits.
Right.
You hit the top rung and you're like, that's too much pressure. I give up.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
I applaud you for that. Like, seriously, like that.
Thank you.
That's a good trait. Your parents are doing a good job. They've raised a
Well,
good young man.
I asked myself this, and I just had a conversation with my dad the other day about this, because we look at, what's coming up next year, and I could say, you're looking at who's coming up. Let's just say even in the lights or whatever, and he's listing off all these names, saying, "Oh, he's going to be there. He's going to be there. He's going to be there. Don't you think it's going to be tough?" I'm like, listen. One day, I want to tell myself I'm going into IndyCar, and I'm going to go up against Will Power, Joseph Newgarden, Cash Nevis, and all the other greats, and I'm going to say, hell, I can't win against those guys. No, I would say I'm going to go against those guys, and I'm going to give it my best. I may not win, but I'm at least going to try, and eventually I am going to beat those guys, because I'm going to be challenged enough, and I'm going to understand that challenge, conquer it, and next thing you know, you're going to start winning races and hopefully championships in the near future. I mean, Max Verstappen or Lewis Hamilton don't go into F1 races saying, "Oh, we're just going to slap the field nowadays." No, it's still a challenge to them. Max didn't just win the championship last year because he didn't think he was going to conquer Lewis. He knew he had the drive to go conquer Lewis, and that was the challenge that he set himself up, and he go conquer that challenge. You can't, if you don't have a goal, you're never going to achieve it. Bottom line.
Yeah, he was waging an unwinnable war about
Right.
3 seasons leading into that, and so but he never gave up. And
No.
That's where I'm going with that. Is you really have the right kind of mental direction to chase. This is a tough business. This is a really, really hard business, and it's competitive. I mean, I love it. I love the pressure. I love the competition, but man, you got to be in that mindset that you have. And I think that's important for young drivers. And I know that you help support, youngsters getting up in karting and trying to figure it out. I think that's like the pay it forward or pay it back kind of attitude that I see in a lot of, from where you are all the way to the highest levels, is like, I really want to encourage young people to move up the rung, because it is, this more than I do. I'm a year into karting with my son, and it's a really close-knit group of people. It's I'll help you right up into the moment that you challenge my son, and then I cut it off, man, and you're on your own.
Right.
And I think that, the benefit of somebody like you helping a youngster, they're so far away from that problem. Like, even if they just go crush it, they're, you're far enough away at that point to really, not have that threat come. But also, man, I'll tell you what, when somebody comes up and helps my son and, helps him through a chicane or a corner, or, carrying more momentum, it's just like he lights up when he hits it, and that micron lights up green. He's just like, yes, let's go.
Yes. Yep.
It's, and it's immediate, it's crazy how much goes into a lap. So
what I will say this, from a coach's perspective, there's nothing more to see a kid succeed in what he's doing and move up the ladder system to the next step, to graduate to the next step. And it's awesome to see, because it sets up another challenge that they have to lie in front of them, and it just keeps on building and building and building, and it doesn't stop.
What advice do you have for somebody considering getting into karting, or like I could have done it better moment? Like, what advice would you give them if they just said, 2023 is my season to start Margay karting?
Yep. What's tough, it's all about what people are looking for. It's all about your goals on what you're trying to strive for. If you're getting into Margay karting and you want to, let's say your goal for next year is to go win, I'd say get as much track time and money laps in as possible. Just grind it out as much as you can, because that's the only way you're going to get better. it doesn't just happen overnight. You don't, if you don't put in the time and you don't put in the work, you're not going to get any results on it. That's anything in life. That's a life lesson for anybody who's all you out there. That's a life lesson. Put in the time, put in the work, the results will show. And I'd say you just go grind, go do laps, learn new things. You're only going to learn new things by doing laps. I never became good. And most of these guys in the Autobahn Club or any successful racer could be gotten good just from doing laps. They've all done it. Everyone's learned nuances, learned new little tricks, learned new little things about the kart. And that's just from tuning, tweaking, just adjusting and playing around with different settings. You got to be adventurous sometimes in it.
That is so true. I mean, we were at the track all day Saturday, for a race, and we probably spent 3.5 or 4 hours trying to get the setup right, and then you get it, and then the sun comes out, and it's like, well,
messes it all up.
Changes.
Yep. It's just knowing knowing the different variables. And that's what, when we have kart races here on league days, people come to me asking, what tire pressures do you set your kart at? What do you do? Because difference between cold, hot days, warm days, cool days, the track's cool, whatnot. And everyone just comes to me saying, what tires would you recommend? I just give them a number based on the conditions. And it's because I've been in that situation, I've done the situation, and I know what works best, what doesn't, and what's going to make your kart come faster in terms of distance, the period of time, over the length of a race, and how the kart's going to react. You just know, and you put it all in your memory bank.
So, okay. So you've been racing since 2015.
Give or take. Yeah. 16 mainly was the first beginning. Yes.
How important is setup?
I'd say it gets more important when you get in the cars. But a lot of it, especially in karting, it's 90% driver, 10% setup. When you get into cars, it can vary between track to track. Nothing's going to beat more than driver skill. Driver skill, driver talent is always going to be more. So I'd say it maybe be 60-40. Mm-hmm. I'd even go as high as 70-30.
Really?
On a percentage scale. Yeah. I think setup definitely helps a driver. Because what the main part about setup is, it helps a driver be able to manipulate or do what the car wants it to do. And that's whether it's how it takes a turn or how you're able to enter a corner. The driver's the only one who's going to know that. The car obviously doesn't. So it's based on what the driver wants and what the driver needs in order to attack a corner. Now, the car can help you get to that standpoint, or it can hurt you. But ultimately, it's what the driver wants and the driver needs.
And when you leave karting and go to open wheel, you have an engineer to do this for you. How important is that relationship and the communication behind, this is what my car is doing and what I need it to do?
Yep. It's like baseball, pitcher and catcher. They got to have a relationship of what pitch they want to call next. Or in football terms, quarterback, wide receiver. You need to have communication. You need to have prediction or consistency on what they're going to do next and be predictable. So when it comes to working with an engineer on a car setup, you need to be very detailed, precise, and adequate with your, I should say, vocabulary, as well as explaining on what the car is doing. So that way you could paint the picture, let the engineer know, hey, this is what I need. This is what it's doing. How can we make this better? Or this is what I want it to do better in this certain areas for me to go fast. So that way he knows what adjustments can work, what adjustments may not work, and at the same time, what you want to have the car do better. Because there's been times where I've said, we need a little bit more lateral grip in this area. We need more power down grip. I say that at the time in the car. We go back, we go look at video. I sit down with my engineer and I show him what we're looking at, what we're discussing. And we may go back and say, oh, that's not lateral grip that we need. That's just a tire pressure issue, because I show him the wheel spin, but it may be in a different area. So being able to maybe go look over video once or twice, being able to look over data, or just being able to talk things out elaborately, just have a massive brain dump, is sometimes the best way to be able to communicate. Little short bits here and there, just saying, oh, I just want the car to have a little bit more front end grip. Yeah, it can help, but you're not going to get the 10/10 that you want, you may get 4 or 3/10 out of it.
So my understanding that these relationships are attached to a team.
Yep.
What is it if you're moving through the ladder system and you know, every season you have a different engineer? I mean, if you were with Pabst for, you know, 2 rungs of the ladder, can you take that engineer if it's a successful pitcher catcher relationship?
You know, some people will do that. They will try to take engineers with them, so that way you have the consistency. Unfortunately, it is tied. Normally, the engineers are tied with the team. So it depends on how much relationship you build with it. You know, it comes down to what the engineer wants to do too. You can tell the engineer, ask the engineer, say, hey, I want you to come up with me. But if you really click with him, he may say yes. And he wants to do it because he wants to continue the relationship. But if you maybe just had him for a season, you were okay, maybe 3rd or 4th in the championship or not clicking very well, you know, he may say no because he knows he's very comfortable and very suited where he's at. And it's a big risk for him to kind of come up with you. It's a much bigger risk for them to move than it is for you to move as a driver.
How hard is it to, I mean, because I attribute that to like a, I don't know, like a marriage. I mean, you have to like get to know that person so they can read your mind. I'm hearing you say, like, you know, lateral grip or power to the wheels and those things. Everybody kind of has little nuances in what they actually mean. You know, you're a great communicator, so it's probably much easier for you, but like another driver that can't quite, like my son, 1 year into karting, he's like, I'm losing the back end.
Right.
Okay.
Like, how so?
Going in the corner, out of the corner, you know, so I mean, how hard is it to get that new engineer every single season? Does it take months, weeks, days?
Sometimes, yeah. It all comes down to the vocabulary, and especially how you elaborate it. You know, that's why I say it's best to be precise and very adequate with what your information is. Like, you always want to give, if the car is loose or a cart is loose, you always want to say if it's loose on entry, is it loose in the middle, or loose on exit. Otherwise, the engineer, if you just say the car is loose, the engineer is going to say where and when. Because they want more information, because they want to be very specific on what they're adjusting so it doesn't hurt the car anywhere else. So being very specific on where the car is hurting and where you want to do better is the main thing you need to do as a young driver coming up through the rankings. And it will build relationship with your engineer a little bit quicker on what he's looking for and what you're looking for. Because the main thing is the engineer wants to know by the end of the year or by the end of the race what you're looking for out of the car. So that way you could say your marriage or your chemistry together is moving at a much more quicker, rapid pace.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, I would say, more of a boyfriend-girlfriend situation when you're looking at engineers, because you're hanging with them for a year and then you're moving on to the next. Then you're moving on to the next engineer. Then you got to get to know them, learn with them, work with them, and eventually once you have too much success, you want to stay with them, but 9 times out of 10, you're going to break up. But until you get to, like, let's say the professional rankings of like IndyCar or NASCAR, whatever, then you can work with your engineer and have a marriage with them because you're there for, let's say, 10 to 15 years or more.
So my last podcast, I had Daniel Ricciardo's performance coach. At your level, I mean, do you have a trainer? Do you have somebody dedicated to you? Because you're obviously you're in the big leagues of racing. So, I mean, do you have these people around you?
Absolutely. I'd say physical fitness is probably the utmost must-have thing when it comes to racing, especially in Formula cars, because we have no power steering compared to some other forms of open wheel series or even what the sports car guys have. Everyone has power steering, so it's a little bit easier to turn a wheel. Whereas in open wheel racing, like IndyCar, there's absolutely no power steering. It's just raw muscle that you have to use in order to turn the wheel. And to do that for 2 hours straight, you need to have a lot of muscular endurance to be able to do that. So yeah, I do have a personal coach. I work with Jib Leo and PitFit down in Indianapolis. They also have another location that I mainly work with in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. So those guys, I am talking with them monthly at least over the phone, whether it's a phone call or video conference call, just kind of being very descriptive on what I'm going through, what my body's feeling, or what I need, let's just say, more out of a muscle program because I'm struggling a little bit with it in the car. I could say when we were in Toronto, I was struggling a little bit with gripping the wheel a little bit because the way the bumps were treating me over the weekend, it was knocking the wheel out of my hand sometimes in some corners. So I need a little bit more wrist strength and a little bit more grip strength. So we decided to make a monthly plan to based off of those two muscle groups, and we basically correlated towards that. And my trainer said, I wish I had drivers who gave as much feedback as you did, because the way he was able to work on my program was based off my feedback that I gave to him. So it kind of works as a training program, like you're talking to an engineer almost,
Right.
too.
Right. Oh, it's incredible. I mean, I did a karting tournament with my son last year, and it was like 7 hours of time trials, and then they would
Right.
ladder system out the drivers. And I mean, 7 hours in a go-kart. I mean, my shoulders were shot. I had bruises all on my
Right.
ribs. And I mean, this is a go-kart.
Right.
You're driving 3 times the speed of these things. And, I can't imagine. That's crazy.
And the interesting thing too is that people would say once they're done with go-karts, they're done with it completely. I say they're wrong, because if anything, driving go-karts when you're especially in a professional level is a workout in itself, and it's a training tool. You see guys like Jordan Taylor, Oliver Askew, or even pro racers get back into go-karts because it's so quick, so fast moving on your body, and you got to be very precise and reactive with it in order to be quick. And the physicality that your body takes is a workout in itself just to be able to drive those carts fast. So you're looking at a good training kart. It's either a KZ shifter or a K100 go-kart that you need to go after, or 125cc, I'd say, because those 3 types of go-karts are the ones that are going to be the most taxing on your body, also the most physical, and they're going to be a lot of fun to be able to drive and be able to race against with others.
I like the instant torque. I'm not a fan of the 206 myself. I like to mash on the gas and feel it.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm hoping my son elevates his engine soon, so I can take it out too. So kind of taking it to just more lighted conversation, like what's something about you that people don't know from just your social media? Like what's something about you that nobody would know about?
Ooh, that's an interesting one, I guess people don't like, some people actually don't know that, if people would have saw me, they'd think I'd be all racing, and I loved racing my entire life.
Mhm.
But what I guess most people don't know is that I was kind of like an all around sports fanatic. So I played baseball, I played hockey, not say hockey, I played tennis, I played golf. I played almost every sport I could try to growing up. Like at age 5 to like getting into high school, I played baseball, and that was the only thing I thought of. Then I picked up a tennis racket and I played tennis. Then I played a little bit of golf here and there. And then I picked up a steering wheel and got into racing after that. So
Okay. So I'm hearing that you like competition.
yeah, pretty much.
Okay. So was this constant need for growth, like, was that going back to baseball? Was it always like, how can I throw harder, farther, hit harder? Like golf, how can I hit straighter, farther, more accurately? Like, was that like level of determination that you have in racing, did that exist in the other sports that you did?
Quite honestly, no, it did not. Growing up and playing baseball, I wouldn't say I was great. I was okay. I was good enough to be on the top leader travel team that we had in our district. We had 2 teams at the time. We had a top leader travel team, and then we had like kind of like an in-house lead that kind of traveled around the area, whereas the travel team would go to like different states or like different cities and all. So I was on that good enough to be a part of that team, but I was probably one of the more weaker guys and probably one of the more lower ranked guys on our team. I wasn't a starter. I was always put in the outfield, and I'd probably always bat middle order towards the back or even play the bench. And I honestly had no drive to want to be getting better. I'd always just was out there kind of having fun at the time, as any other kid, until, it got serious and I still wanted to play once it got to high school, until I missed the cut. And right there, I knew that, like, I wasn't good enough, or they took guys who were, were more, I should say, local, were loyal at the time. I don't know what it was, but I tried out again for in my sophomore season, and I probably would have made the team, but I probably would have sat the bench for most of the year. So that's when I decided, to pick up a tennis racket, because my baseball swing matched with the tennis game. Mm-hmm. So started playing there, was taking lessons and was training on that forefront. But again, thought of it more as a game and was just kind of having fun with it, something to kind of keep me active and do, as an extracurricular activity. Was good at it, would be in the top half of of our team and be in the top ranked matches. But when I was playing against some of these guys who were practicing every day and would actually do tournaments, I sucked at it, and I was the one making the unforced errors and was the weak link on the team. So that was until I got into racing, and I absolutely found a passion that I love, with what put a steering wheel in my hands, and I would want to be on the track every day, because not only did I think it was fun, but I just had a passion for it. And that's kind of when I found the limelight.
So in the support series of racing, you're following the big show for the most part.
Right.
What's the craziest pinch me moment that you've had just in that video?
I would probably say the first time I ever met Jeff Gordon, or was when I was able to go into the garage area for the first time in my first NASCAR race. Just being able to get up close in person to the action and next to all the stars of drivers, and being able to meet my favorite driver was probably the first pinch me moment. Because back then, when I'm doing all this, I'm still considered a fan. I'm not anywhere near a race car, never in a driver's seat or anything like that. I'm still a fan, just taking everything in, enjoying every single moment, and experiencing something that I haven't ever experienced before. So just being able to kind of see that, nowadays from even a different perspective, I know what it's like. So whenever like a kid, let's just say, comes up to me or, wants to see the car, I just try to take them in and show them as much as I can, because I know how much they appreciate it and how much it's going to make their day, just like it's made my day when I was in their shoes, I would say years ago, or could still be in their shoes nowadays.
Yeah. I actually, last week or the week before, the local Aston Martin dealer had Lance Stroll's 2020 car in their showroom. And I mean, I'm like I don't know, I just kind of geeked out in the showroom, and I took pictures or whatever, but man, I just like walking around this car, it's such an engineering beast, and it's not the fastest thing out there, but it is just unbelievable to see that. What did you not expect? So like when you get to this level, like what was like, oh, I didn't see that coming, or like what surprised you?
How much faster everybody else was. Straight off the bat, how consistent, how much faster, and like I'm still sometimes blown away. Like I could put a fast lap down, and I could put, let's just say, a 2:09.2 down, and I think that's as fast as I gotta get. That's a blistering time. I wonder where that puts me. And I could go back to the trailer and I look and I'm like P9 or P8. And I'm like, how the heck am I this far back? And I look at the top spot and they're like running a 1:08.7 or 2:08.7 or 2:08.6, something ridiculous. And I'm like, how in the heck am I going to get there? So sometimes it's like that, but sure enough, you think that at first, but then when you put in the work and activities and all that other stuff that's behind the scenes, soon enough, you're the one who's putting in the 2:08.7s or 2:08.6s, and everybody else behind you is putting in a 2:09.2.
Do you guys have the telemetry? Like a
I
like
mean,
a I mean, I've got crazy telemetry on Formula One, but like,
yeah,
do you have brake zones and how much
yeah,
momentum they're carrying through corners for other
yeah,
drivers?
exactly. And that's the good part about being with the Road to Indy and on the same weekend as IndyCar is that they have all their timing and everything set up. So we could see sector times, we could see predictive laps, we could see like when we had best splits, best sectors, who had the best split, who had the best sector, and so forth. So we have all that telemetry. It's just when you're in the moment of the car, you feel like you're pushing the car to the absolute edge or as fast as you can go. But there's always someone out there who's feels or seems like it's going a half second faster than what you're actually putting down.
Okay, so this is the perfect segue. That comment right there. Okay, so I've been writing on Quora for, I don't know, a year and a half now, and I've become this quasi expert of the business of racing.
Right.
And all the time I get the question of who's responsible for crash damage? Like,
Yep.
who, when you put that thing in the wall, because your job is to run that thing on the razor's edge of its performance, which
Right.
means you're too slow or you're in the wall, and you
Right.
have to find that point. Who does the team cover that? Is that part of the team's budget?
No, it is not. It is not. And that's the kind of fine line as a driver you need to find. You need to understand when the car is going to be on its edge, when it's going to be, if it's too much, you need to pull the reins back a little bit when it's about to step out. Because the moment you hit a wall for a driver, it's the most devastating feeling ever because money's going to need to be spent in order for this car to get repaired to get put back on the racetrack. And it's honestly the worst feeling ever. It's why they say it's the highs and lows of racing, because you could be winning and be on top of the world, and the next lap you could be in the wall for all that matters.
Is that you, your team? I mean, is it you and your family and your sponsors paying for that damage?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The team's not for the way in junior level racing, the team's not paying you or covering anything. They are simply there to support you, be your mechanics and everything, work on the cars. They'll do everything that you say and you ask to them to do. But when it comes to damage, it's on you, your sponsors, and whatever way you can find money to bring to the table. That's all it is.
I mean,
that's the exact way how the team makes money. So sometimes when they see a car on the wall, they're like, okay, well, that's a $300,000 weekend for us that we just made right there.
Does that hold you back? I mean,
no. I mean, you can't. As a driver, you can't let it hold you back. I mean, there's been times, you crash a car and you're like, all right, the next time you go through that corner, when you get back on the track, you got to be, mindful and careful of not making that mistake again. But you still got to be pushing on the razor's edge because you could be in a race or you could be in qualifying, So it's just, you learn from the mistake, you learn from what you did wrong, and you just keep in the back of your mind that if something like this happens again, or you're starting to feel like you're getting to that way, just through looking at the video and through looking at data and using what you learn, how can you change the outcome and how can you make it
right? Wow. I think for me, I remember, so my son last year did a arrive and drive league, loved it, fell in love with it, became his passion,
right.
and when we were kind of teetering on the edge of like, do we just keep doing this and having fun and like bonding as father and son and just having fun and or do we make this investment and get a cart and have all these things? You start signing all these waivers for the track, and like if you hit a wall and you break it, you have to write a check, and so a couple of people let him take the go-kart out, and run it, and I remember a moment when he was out there. He'd come back in every couple of laps and they'd be like, okay, try this, do this, make this adjustment, and and then go back out, and I remember him coming in from a set, and the nose of it had a dent in it, and
Right.
just like, white as a ghost. And, it comes in and they kick it and they're like, you hit a wall.
Yep.
Next time you go through that, do this. And then he went back out and I was like, what, like, are you upset? Like, what? And he's like, no. He's like, you never tell a driver that, they're in trouble for hitting a wall or damaging the car. Like because they'll hesitate, and you never want that fear to settle in.
No. And that's the thing. Like, whenever you hit a wall, you hit it, but the next time you just need to learn what happened, what did wrong, what caused it, and just know what to do better. Like, for instance, I'll even use this example. There's been times where I can go through a corner. I've done it millions of times or even hundreds of times on a given weekend. Know how to take it right, but one time the car just doesn't feel right, and you try to push it, and the next thing you know, the back end slips out from under you and you hit the wall. Does that keep you from going back to that same corner and not going full throttle? Sure, maybe for the first lap or two, but you also have to think in the back of your head, you're taking this corner how many times? You know how to take it. You just need to go back to doing and know what works. And you have to go back to knowing what works the most. And just because the car got loose sometimes, collect yourself, collect the car, save it. But the next time you go through it, make sure it doesn't feel like that, and make sure it feels like the way you want it to feel like. Because that's the way you're going to know it's going to make it through a corner.
So you have a whole season of this damage gone to your head and all of this. Like, how do you recharge? Like, how do you fill the tank in between races or in between seasons?
Well, you just know as a driver, it's kind of a rinse and repeat type of deal. You know how to put a lap together. Otherwise, you're going off the track every single lap. And unless you're doing that, you're probably not in the right place if you're going off the track every single lap. You probably need to find, let's just say, another, I would say, a training ground to kind of get yourself that way, or you need to just find a better spot that suits what your skill level is like. So for me, I'm at the point to where now almost every driver is running pinpoints, brake markers, and apexes perfect almost every time. Yeah, they're making a mistake here and there every now and then, but it's very rare. So once we develop a little bit of a rhythm, we kind of just stick to that rhythm and stick to what works. And until you get into like the race or qualifying to where you actually have to push the car a little bit more, you start to find the new element, you start to find new barriers. And once you know you're able to do it, you just continue to do it and it works after that. So let's just say you go to a race weekend, you're in practice, you're comfortable at a pace of, let's running 102.2s, for instance. Qualifying comes around, you need to push the car a little bit more, but you have the grip to be able to do it. So you have the confidence and you have the experience that it's going to be able to work. So you push the braking zone a little bit further. You hit the brakes a little bit harder. You turn it a little bit more aggressively, and time is able to be found there. And you're really not doing anything different. You're just being a little bit more aggressive, letting off the brake a little bit more, and letting mainly the tires do more of the work because they have the grip levels to be able to do it. And next thing you know, you're able to find lap time. Well, once you know the tires are starting to fall off, you got to dial it back a little bit. And everything you find out with the track changes, with tires going away, every little variable that you're dealing with as it's changing, your mind is telling you, all right, this is the kind of pace we have to run, or we have to dial it back a little bit in order to be able to run this type of pace. Otherwise, if you overstep that boundary, you're going to find yourself in the wall, and nobody wants to do that.
So motorsports is, one of the dads said it best. Motorsports is like a lone wolf sport. Like,
yep.
You're out there and it's not personal,
yep.
Like you guys can all hang out and be friends, but at the end of the day, it's either him or me going to the top step of the podium. And like that, that pressure can be felt at any racetrack of like, how do I extract this time? Or, this person's a 10th off of me and they're, then they're 1,000th off of me and then they're a 10th ahead of me. And then you've got to get ahead of them. Like, how do you're in in a lone wolf environment. So how do you like, who do you latch on to? Like, how do you stay motivated or like stay positive when seemingly everybody's out to get, like, this is sales 101. Like in sales,
Right.
everybody wants to, be the top dog. And so everybody's going to push and hit or whatever they have to do. But
Right.
in motorsports, like, who do you have out there? Is it your engineer? Is it your dad? Like who's out there to?
So I can do two plugins here, and one is it's not like it's like a mental, I guess you could say it's like a mental health coach, you could say, to where I've have someone who I went to over the off season who's, worked with my mind on perspective and mindset, and basically has put me in, like, if I'm racing against someone saying I need to beat him, like he's the guy I need to beat because I'm racing against him.
Right.
Well, he's told me to take that away because that's setting yourself up for expectations. And if you're setting yourself up for expectations and you fail to those expectations, then you drain yourself down to more of a negative attitude towards everything around you. So he's taught more on the positive side, on mentally going into races, saying you are racing only against yourself. Yes, there's maybe 15 other guys on the racetrack, but you're racing against yourself because you're the only one who can control your own car in that case. So he's worked with me more on the mindset that I can only do the best I possibly can out there because I'm the only one who's controlling myself, my destiny. So right there mentally, it just shows that whoever's in front of me, fine. If I'm better than them, then I need to be better than myself. So therefore, I need to go past myself. I'm thinking, technically, you could think of as, but it just puts your mind into a better perspective and look at things differently in a more positive attitude way. So that way, when you go to the racetrack and you're feeling more positive about it, you're feeling better about yourself and you're able to perform better. Because if you go into the racetrack thinking all negatively and being upset, what the number one rule in life is when you're driving a car, don't drive angry, because then you get all upset, you start cutting people off on the roadways, or you are potentially going to get in a crash. And that's just the way how your mind is thinking. So if you're very positive or very happy about yourself and your performances, you tend to drive better. So just being in a more positive attitude has helped me. Not only that, but my main sponsor, which is now the Racing for Mental Health or charity that me and my family have started right here. It's just me. It started off with me being in school, having ADHD, being able to not be able to focus with everything that's happening around me. Well, the Racing for Mental Health standpoint puts me in a race car. There's so much going on around me that I'm like fidgeting and like doing a bunch of other stuff with my hands, my head, and everything, that I'm able to hyper focus inside the race car. And it actually brings the best of me just being inside of a race car. And that's just from a passionate standpoint, one, but two, just finding my niche, being able to talk to people about my mental health illness or mental health state, of how I can make myself better. And it just turns me not only into a better racer, but a better person in general, that I've been able to overcome a mental health issue for the better of me. And that's with anybody, honestly. Anybody who has, let's just say, any other stigma that's keeping them from, being out there in public, or letting themselves really know letting people know who they really are, because they are too afraid inside or have the mental health stamina inside that keeps them from doing it. Well, just latching out to talking to people about it actually opens you up and broadens it even more. So we encourage Racing for Mental Health, encourage people to find the help that they need in order to bring the best of themselves out to the people in the world.
I agree with you. I think today that, call it society, call it whatever, tries to take these things that, whatever that is, like for me, I mean, I'm not diagnosed or anything like that. I just, I joke that, my ADD tendencies have made me a better entrepreneur, a better salesperson, a better just big picture person, because I can focus on something and take in wide swaths of data, exactly what you're saying about being in the car. Like if you know, you've been on an onboard of a Formula One car, which is where you mostly see it. Like, I mean, they're driving, they're not shifting, they're fidgeting, they're playing with the computers, the brake bias. I mean, they're all over the place, lap after lap after lap after lap after turn after turn after turn. And it to me, like in that ADHD allows you to consume massive amounts of information while remaining highly focused on something and thrive in that environment. It's almost like you personally come alive under that pressure. Whereas most people are like, oh, that's too much information. You're like, you're zoned into it. And I think what you guys are doing there is fantastic. I didn't know that before this, but I do think it's important to take these qualities that people have. Some of it is fear, public speaking. You know, I always tell people that are terrified of public speaking, go speak. You know, I was terrified of it young. And then anytime somebody asked me to talk in front of a group, I just said yes. And I dealt with the consequences afterwards, you know, just to force myself to get comfortable with that. And now it doesn't bother me at all. And I honestly, like, I enjoy talking without any preparation. I almost like get dyslexic if there's too much structure. It's like, I forgot something or something's missing.
Right.
And so I think, you know, I think it's really great to take people and take those weaknesses and make them a strength. So kudos, man. Kudos to your family. That's awesome.
Thank you. And I can even attest too, you know, before we even started the show, I didn't really look over let's just say the outline you sent me. I didn't even look, I just breezed over it just to see if there was anything that I didn't want to talk about in it. Otherwise, if anything else, I let free because I'm much better openly discussing about things off the cuff than being prepared to speak about it. Because if I'm prepared to speak about it, then I feel like I have to say everything word for word. And if I don't say it word for word, I messed up, you know? Whereas if you say it off the cuff, you can kind of just roll along with it. And plus, especially for myself in public speaking, people rather see you just be yourself and talk about it than be talking off a whiteboard or a teleprompter, let's just say. They rather just see you just be yourself and just come up with your own creative strategy or creative way to speak about it. And especially people like to hear it from the heart too. If you say it from the heart, that means you truly, honestly mean it. Otherwise, you're reading it off of a board or anything. You can mean it, you may not. No one's gonna know.
How involved is your family in your career?
They absolutely love it, and they're heavily involved with it. They absolutely love it. You know, they've been going to NASCAR races before I was even born. So they've been in racing basically almost their entire lives together. And once we decided to go racing, they love being at the track. They love going to the races. They go to almost every single race I go to, and they're almost in the pits or watching me on track every time I am on track. I finally have, like the last couple of years, have gotten them to take a step back from when I go to testing by myself. I've been able to do that because otherwise they're on track. Every time the car is on track, they're there watching and witnessing it because they love it so much. But finally, I've gotten them to say, listen, I can take care of the testing by myself. You guys aren't doing too much there anyway. Do your own thing. I got it. So
has it brought you, do you have siblings?
No, all by myself, lone child.
Okay. Yeah. You're in good company. You get in trouble for that all the time. And I'm like, yeah. So it has brought you guys a lot closer together.
Yes. It has brought us a lot closer. There also have been a lot of, I would say, there's a lot of tension moments in between us. You know, not everything goes to plan. We argue quite a bit. Little things make us happy here and there, or make us very angry with one another. Have come to fruition that maybe having them at the track maybe is a distraction to me. Who knows? Maybe I start going to race weekends by myself. Nonetheless, I know in the back of my mind is that they're doing it because they love me. They absolutely love being at the racetrack, and they wouldn't want to be anywhere else or have me be doing anything else because they know I love what I'm doing at this moment too. You know, and that's what they wanted from the best of me, and that's what they want me to do for my life is do what I absolutely love. So the fact that I'm getting to do that right now, they absolutely love it too.
I think that's something you'll learn as a parent is naturally we say, I'm watching this young person grow up. And as a parent, you can see the future. Like even you can see the future of a young driver because you've walked that path before.
Right.
But like as a parent, you're like, this is my child. Like this is my child. I love them to death. I want them to be successful. I know where all the landmines of life are. And I want to help them navigate that. And honestly, like it speeds up your life. Like the things that you learn in life as an adult, you can pass it to the next generation, and it helps them kind of not have to make those mistakes and deal with the time it takes to fix them. And I remember a conversation I had with my son one time, totally off motorsports topic, but he just was like, Dad, he's like, I just want to like, let me make my own mistakes. Let me figure that out. Let me figure out where the boundaries are. And I was like, maybe I've done these things because I hit the wall a couple of times and I realized maybe I should let off a little bit there, and it's a fine balance as a parent to not be like, stop, do this.
Yes. It's the school of hard knocks, quite honestly. And the thing is, I could see from your standpoint, you don't want them to make the same mistake that you did because it's not going to be good for them. But at the same time, when it comes to, let's say, racing, letting them hit a wall every now and then, what's going to happen. At any point in time on the racetrack, it's bound to happen. It's just part of the sport. But if they do it, they actually can learn a lesson based off experience, because you learn actually more off experience than actually being told, because you understand a little bit more and actually live it through the experience. So the fact that they sometimes are able to make mistakes and learn from it, that's what makes them a better driver or a better person in life. That's why they have the development series in these Formula Series or Junior Series. That's the whole purpose of it. And we're not just throwing them straight into an Indy car and saying, all right, do your best, basically.
Okay, so I'm gonna pivot the conversation here.
Yes.
When we were at dinner, I asked you a very pointed question, and I'm gonna let you answer it. But when we were sitting there talking, I asked you the question about, okay, so if I'm a business and I want to go put my logo on an Indy car or a Formula One car, that's one thing. But if I'm going to put my logo on your car at your level, like what is the value proposition? Like if you came to me and to my company and you're like, Ryan, I need sponsors and, I need this, here's what you receive. And I'm actually I'm going to affirm you, because the next day I actually witnessed everything that you said firsthand. So I'm hoping you respond the same way, but I'll fill in the gaps anywhere that.
I might go a little off topic, but to go back to George, to start off, Junior Formula Series is probably one of the hardest things you can do, or hardest ways to find sponsorship.
Yeah.
To start off. And the reason why that is because the attention ground, the names in the sport are not developed yet.
Yeah.
You hear a bunch of these names and you have no idea who these are or who these people are, because they're just general other people for you driving a car around the track. When you go to an IndyCar race, you're looking to watch Joseph Newgarden, Diallo Castroneves, and Will Powers on track. You're wanting to go watch the professionals. That's what you paid the money to do. The junior programs are all the support series races that are there to help fund the programs for IndyCar to be on track, basically. And for us, we produce good racing here and there. Yeah, you may remember a name or two, but until you remember that name, you do not see them on track or know who they are until you hear that name or you see them do something special on the racetrack to make you say, that was awesome. Who is that kid? I want to follow him. You do not know that. So from a business perspective, it's very hard to find the value to sponsor a kid, because from the Road to Indy's perspective, like a USF 2000 or Indy Pro 2000, our races are live streamed on YouTube. And
Mhm.
unless you're well known within the series or know someone who's in the series, you're not just going to randomly go on and say, oh, the IndyPro 2000 race is on, I want to watch it, unless you're a really big fan of IndyCar and the open wheel ladder system. You
Mhm.
just don't. So from a business to really, take it apart and go to a driver to say, I want to sponsor you, it's a big risk, very big risk on this business, especially with a driver who doesn't have the name to represent themselves and is going to represent your brand. So the also biggest thing too is you're going up against, a bunch of other kids who are fighting for the same spot, and they're fighting for the same deal and dilemma that you're doing. But what makes you stand out of all of them?
Right.
And it's basically, what can you bring to the table? What can you offer as a driver like myself? What can I offer to you as a business that will help you be at the racetrack? Because just giving kids money, or just giving people today for businesses saying, here's $20,000, put my company's name on the car, and we're going to get all the marketing value in the world. No, it doesn't work like that. Businesses do not care about stickers on race cars. It doesn't work nowadays. So what it comes down to is, what can the driver offer through the racing series that's going to help promote the business? And a lot of it is entertainment. We've seen this now the racing industry has gone from both a motorsport and actual sport to entertainment, whether it's the series itself to promote more entertainment to the viewer on TV, to the general fan, or do you keep the integrity of the sport? You kind of see it going back and forth in the ball court. From a race car driver's standpoint, we do the racing, we're part of the sport, but our other job is to entertain you as the business or client of ours. So how do we do that? Well, it's simply through opportunities at the racetrack, whether it's meet and greets with drivers, paddock passes, tickets to the actual races themselves, hospitality that we can serve at the racetrack themselves, on-track rides that we may be able to give before the event, whether it's garage passes that we can give you inside access to all the haulers that you may not get on a regular basis. I'll even go back to the question you asked me before: what was my best experience of being at the racetrack? From a fan standpoint, it was meeting Jeff Gordon and being inside the actual hauler in the garage area. That was the best thing ever, being at the racetrack. Well, that's what the drivers can offer to you as a fan and as a business person, to bring corporate people to the racetrack. Now, to also segue it too, and I'm sure this is the point you're looking for, is how can you get business to business transactions and businesses to work with other businesses? That's when you're going to make the connection, and that's where you're going to create more of a lifeline, I should say, through your business, and make your business strong.
Exactly. So what was funny about that night is, you're explaining this to me, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Cool. If I'm in the garage and there's another business owner there, and there's some sort of synergy there, then sure, we can exchange business cards.
Right.
The next day at the race, I was in Andretti hospitality,
right,
and I brought my wife, and we're sitting there eating lunch, and with a table full of people, and the whole time, what do you do? How do you do that? How does this fit in my business? Well, here's what I do. And I'm sitting at the table watching all these business cards and cell phone numbers and exchanges happening, and I'm like, Jordan, like it like clicked. It was,
yep,
man, I guess it makes sense to, like, I'm sitting here and
witnessing it,
watching this happen. I think my wife got a couple of clients from that event.
Right.
And that is also kind of my segue to marketing. This is another thing that I'm actually impressed with what you do differently than a lot of other junior drivers, is like, you actually market yourself.
Yeah.
And I speak with young drivers a lot of the time, and it's like, oh, I'm trying to get sponsors and blah, 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 blah. And I'm trying to raise money. And it's like, does anybody know who you are?
Yeah.
And the thing is in 2022, marketing and social media is the most to me, I would write you a $20,000 check for you to tag my business on your social media if you have a following, because that gets more reach than a logo on a car driving 200 miles an hour past me. Like,
Right. Right.
I understand the benefit of that in a lot of cases, but even from a major corporate sponsor perspective, where I've actually been around the conversation, is like, they're like, nobody's going to buy our product because we have a sticker in the car. You know, we don't even sell a consumer. But what it does is it allows our salespeople to take our customers and our prospects to a race, provided Jeff Gordon-like event to them they'll never forget. And then when I call them and I want to sell them a widget or do business with them, they're like, man, you know, Jordan hooked me up with this guy, you know, and he's like, he gave me this experience that nobody else could provide, that I honestly, I couldn't have bought with a ticket and gotten that. Like, it's actually very valuable. And it was just so interesting, the timing of that conversation we had, because the next day I watched it all unfold on the grid and hospitality, like around all these people. It was just like all this commerce was taking place at the track. Like, people were there to watch a race, but all the people you see on the video cameras were there doing business. It's wild. And I think any sort of B2B sales organization should, in my opinion, be chasing motorsport, because it is the fastest growing thing in the world right now. It is the most engaged social media globally. I mean, this is against the NFL, the MLB. I mean, everyone, this is the most engaged sport. And if you want your brand in the world, this is where you do it. And you do it very well.
Yeah, not to mention too, it's also the biggest spectator sport here in America too. Like, you get 75,000 fans at a racetrack. I mean, that's 75,000 people that are getting a whiff of your business firsthand, right in front of their very own eyes. Not only that, but you're dealing with some pretty cool cars too, that week in and week out, almost every weekend. But to your point, this is not just happening at one given race. It's not just happening at the Indy 500. It's every single race weekend this is happening. You know, people are developing, growing their businesses every single week just by being at the racetrack and handing their cards out to people saying, here's what we do. Here's how we can benefit you. Let's get in touch. Let's create a partnership together. And the next thing you know, they're saying, all right, well, we got you on board. We want to also, you know, increase our partnership together, and we're going to invite you, your corporate people, and your company and your clients out to the racetrack so they can experience it, so they can be even more in touch not only with your business, but they can start to know us a little bit, and we can kind of work together as a more business to business transaction. And that's where you develop relationships, and that's where you start attaching associated partners, sponsorship, and you start working in business to business. And once you get that whole network circle going, you're set.
I couldn't agree more. I honestly, I think that's where sponsorship gets raised. And, you know, and I have a blog on Quora. I've had it there for a long time. And I get the question asked to me all the time, is like, you know, I'm getting into karting and it's expensive and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, look, you know, you can go into an Ignite series for like under $1,000 a year. Like, that's cheaper than club soccer or club baseball. And, you know, and to some people that's a lot of money. And so, you know, it's like, hey, go to a local pizza place, you know, not a big chain, but a local pizza place, and say, hey, you know, I'm a racer. I'm trying to do this. You know, you're basically giving me money to go do something, but in return for that, I'm going to promote your business and tell all my friends. And by the way, you know, if I'm a 15-year-old kid, I've got 1,000 friends on social media. And if 5% of them order their pizza, which if you sponsor me, I'm going to tell them to do it. You know, you're going to recoup your investment through revenue and X. You know, you create a business case. It's small, but you know, if you're a pizza parlor and you say, if I give Jordan $1,000 check, but over the course of 12 months, I make $12,000. I mean,
Hell,
I don't care if my logo's on his car.
yeah, you're
like,
making money out of it.
exactly. And I think that's the lost art of young drivers right now, is they're selling a logo on a car. You get it.
Yep.
It's not a logo on a car. It's not a logo on a fire suit. It's the social media content, because that's, as a family business, we have a marketing agency, and content is the hardest thing for companies to generate. And even if they say, we're a sponsor of Jordan Missig, those are words and pictures and all that stuff to promote, and that gets eyeballs. That's interesting. Nobody wants to hear like, this new employees, this is their 12-month anniversary. Like, customers don't pay attention to that. When I see a race car, that, as a guy, that I'm like, okay, I'm going to pay attention to that. That's interesting. So I really think you are tracking in the right arenas as well. I think, kind of having an entrepreneurial family helps see the bigger picture, the business end of motorsports, not the glitz and glam of
Right.
but the business end of it. And I think that's what differentiates, somebody grinding it out to the top versus petering out halfway through and walking. So
I always said this: as a racer, you have 5 different caps that you have to wear. 1 is entrepreneur. 2 is the marketing. 3, public spokesperson. 4 is when you start getting to the athlete portion, and then 5 is your racing.
Exactly. Exactly. If there's anything that anybody is listening to, that statement to me is what's going to take any young person to the top. And it actually segues into the question I ask all my guests, which is, it's the number one question I get on Quora. It's like, I'm 14 years old, I'm 10 years old, I'm 40 years old, and I want to be a Formula One driver or an IndyCar driver when I grow up. What do I do? Like, what advice from your vantage point, because you're actually doing it, what would you tell that person? Like, these are the achievable benchmarks to arrive at that destination.
So this is actually this leads into a little bit of a funny story, because being at Portland just past weekend, we had a kickoff party at this bar that we were signing autographs as drivers for fans that were just out there. We're also doing interviews and getting drinks. This guy comes up and starts having a conversation with him, talking about himself, talking about us and our careers, and says, I have a 6-year-old son who's looking to getting into becoming a racer, who just started racing karts. And he started asking us these questions about this career. And then he starts asking the questions about, all right, since you guys are professional racers, he's looking to get into racing. What's some advice you could give me as a parent that I can use to get him in the racing or prolong his career, I should say? And the first thing me and this other guy were saying is, he needs to learn how to sell himself. He needs to learn how to go to talk to people, how to make marketing deals. I don't like, you can work out as a parent, at his young age, you can work out the deal, but let him, as a young driver, even though the answer is going to be yes, some guy's going to give him money, let him go up to the guy and make an attempt to sell himself. That way he gets the practice to talk to people, to learn how to sell himself, even though the answer is already going to be yes. Just let him get the practice, and let the guy just tell and just say, all right, I'm going to give you the money, but here's what you could work on for next time. Maybe critique him a little bit, make him learn how to get better. And the other thing we were just saying is, he needs to go out and practice as much as he can, grind out on the track, get as much seat time as he can, get himself into many experiences, whether it's in races, nationally or regionally, is the best way to do it. Just get him into small races before putting him into the big national kart series until he's ready. Once he's ready to make that jump, then throw him in. But you're not going to be able to make that happen unless you get the business model correct, because money doesn't grow on trees. Eventually that money's going to run out. So as long as you have money in the bank to go racing, you can do it, but you need to find out how to get that money in the bank. And that's by just selling yourself, playing the role of an entrepreneur, salesman, or even a marketing person. You just need to find a way to be able to sell everything, whether it's hero cards, talking to people, having the business to business type of way of flowing things together and making things work, and just understanding the value of what being a racer is. Once you can do that, then you have the whole package. Then you just got to go talk to people and catch on to them from there.
So to set the benchmarks for the audience, when you get into regional karting, what's that ballpark number? When you get into, F3, what is that number? IndyPro, Indy Lights, like what are those numbers?
Are you talking from like a price ranging standpoint, or was like from a driver standpoint? Like, what are the benchmarks that you need?
If I'm the dad of a 6-year-old and it's like, okay, we're going to get into regional now, how much
first thing you need
raise?
Yeah. First, I mean, money wise, when especially in the karting standpoint, it's really affordable. Keep them in carts as long, I wouldn't say as long as you can, because eventually there could be like 15 still in carts. I'd keep them in until they start getting really good and moving up the rankings. And which would be, if they start winning races regionally, then move them to the national level. Then once they start really good national level, then start doing the actual championships. Once they start doing good there, you just continue to keep moving them forward. Once they start showing success and they're ready to move on, you could see it from a parent's perspective. Once they have success, that's winning races, winning championships. You'll see it on the track. From budget wise, I mean, you're looking upwards to getting into car stuff, maybe around 400 grand. I would say 400 to 600 grand. And then once you get up into like what I'm kind of doing, you're looking at around 600 to 800 grand, I would say. And then Indy Lights, you're looking at even $1 million to do the whole season. And IndyCar is like $3 million. So that's how the budget, that's how astronomically the budget changes as you move up the series. And as you move up, I mean, it's just another stepping stone, but the budget increases astronomically amount. So therefore, you got to ask more sponsorship. You got to ask for more money the higher the series goes. But with that also comes more publicity, more marketing value, more ways to communicate with others and get your eyes in front of people. So the more you move up, the value starts to rise as well, but the cost also goes with it. So you got to keep that playing field even and not let the cost raise above the marketing value.
So ABC, always be closing, right?
Yeah, right. There you go. Always be closing on a deal when you're talking to people, but at a young age, just keep it simple. Let them have fun at that age. They're there to have fun. Don't put any pressure on them. Just let them learn how to drive. Let them learn how to race. Make friends. Just keep it simple.
I love it. I love it. So Jordan, how do people find you?
So there are multiple ways for people to follow me. Easiest ways are social media, which are Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Easily just search up my name, Jordan Missig Racing. It's easy from there. On Twitter, it's Jordan M Racing. It's the best way to follow me there. I have my own website named jordanmissigracing.com. Has all of my news and photos and everything that you can see. All my social media posts are also there, and videos that I post out as well. So that's all there. Otherwise, go to my main social media sponsor, which is Racing for Mental Health. Please support them as well. They they support me as well. Post a lot of our blog stuff on there, as well as really good social mental health content as well. They give good statistics as well as good ways to, I would say, to understand and get the stigma out there of what mental health is all about to the community, the people, and how it makes you a better person.
That's a good word. So how can the world of motorsports help and support Jordan Missig and your dream of getting to the top?
Well, I mean, it comes down to businesses. If you're able to want to fund me, I'm not going to say it that way because that's being a little too direct in that case. It all comes down to what we're able to offer, and what our package here for me that I'm able to offer is bar none better than any other driver that's probably out there right now in the junior development series. We have a package and a system that is perfect for the corporate business to get in touch with other businesses. We have the networking, the access to elevate your business to the next level, as well as just like elevating my career to the next level. And just like most people, I have the determination to succeed, to win, and to move the business to the next level, as most businesses do when they move up and they want to grow, they want to succeed, and they want to go to the new demographic and the new market. I have that same mental attitude and same strength that I try to use and I will use to help promote businesses, just like they help to promote me as a racer.
And I'm gonna add as a long time salesperson and just kind of leader, is drivers of your caliber are the new Maverick, the new fighter pilot. And I think that something that is valuable to an organization, yes, writing a check is important, and getting some of the sideline benefits and paddock passes and things like that are valuable. But having somebody like you in front of a sales team and in front of a national sales meeting and saying like, look, I have to have people write me checks to see their logo on a YouTube video, to me, I think that's such an important baseline for companies to hear, because when you have these events, you're struggling to find people to go and talk that are not like the teachers, like, and nothing against teachers, but like, it's easy to talk about it. It's one thing to do it. And I think that you are doing it and talking about it.
Right.
And that's a hard sell. You're not selling a widget along with that. And I think it's encouraging to salespeople to hear that, like, that lone wolf fighter kind of mentality, the fighter pilot attitude that you have and you carry, it's the public speaking part of your role. And I think that having you and people like you at an event is really valuable with a return on that investment for that. So, man, I just close it up. This has been a great conversation.
Absolutely.
Since that dinner, I just, my wife, my son, is like, he gets it. It's rare. It's rare to get it. And you understand it. You speak well. Like, not many people can carry on a conversation with a camera, and you do it well. And I think that's an important aspect, even at the top. How much does Mark Zuckerberg spend on media training? It's important.
Yeah. I mean, that's been the whole point of the road to Indy, is they've been just trying to stick as many cameras in your face as well. So when you get up to the NTT IndyCar level or any professional motorsports, you come right off the track. Next thing you know, there's a camera or a microphone right in your face. You got to be ready to speak. You got to be ready to talk about whatever you just did on the track, whether it's good or bad. You got to say it.
That was Michael Italiano's I wasn't expecting this answer. Was his first year into Formula One was the first year that Netflix had gone to Formula One. So he's Daniel's new coach. He shows up at the track, they mic him up and they're chasing him around with cameras. And, it's like, well, where am I? I'm just a performance coach, guys. Like,
how'd I get thrown into this?
Yeah. And you got to be ready for it. Like, he's another one. He was a really great, all I had to do is kind of like lob a softball and, just like he was able to take it. So I really appreciate it. Anytime you want to come on, if you got plans, announcements, whatever, you shoot me a message, and I appreciate your time. And I know a lot of people listening will appreciate what you have to say.
Absolutely, Ryan. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed this. This was fun. Great to talk with you and everything. And hope your viewers obviously enjoyed this, hopefully. And, I personally hope that my knowledge has been able to be shared out to everybody else's knowledge, and they've been able to learn something from this as well. So, I can't say no more. Thank you for having me on the show. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, likewise, man. I appreciate it.